I'm Christopher Schoenwald, and welcome to Life as a show intently focused on helping people find their professional pathway by exploring and unearthing the details of jobs from around the world. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to throw this out there. I have a channel over on YouTube, Life as a ... which basically hosts highlights from these audio conversations that I have with these great guests. They typically run 10 to 15 minutes, and they're there to kind of present a different vantage point. You know, for people that aren't into audio, aren't into podcasts, but are still looking for career advice, ideas, help, all that great stuff, send them over to YouTube. Like I said, Life as a ... And if you do get over there, I would love that like or subscribe. I mean, it's the best way to let that algorithm know that the content is worth sharing and should be out there. So anyway, I do thank you for letting me plug this a little bit, but I think it's about time to get into today's episode. Hey, welcome to the program. Have you ever given much thought towards the reasoning why people get into running their own businesses? Of course, I mean, stock answers like the potential for financial freedom, early retirement, the ability to do things you really want to do are a few explanations which may come to mind. However, if that was all you came up with, you'd be missing one big driver as to why people become entrepreneurs. You'd have overlooked potentially the biggest motivator. What I'm talking about here is mission, sometimes referred to as purpose. And this factor is arguably the most powerful reasoning to start your own business. And oftentimes, it's born out of a founder's personal experiences in life. Take today's guest, a high-flying biotech startup founder who struggles with a particular issue inspired her to seek out solutions that could help not only herself, but potentially millions of others. Well, in today's episode, you're going to hear from her explain her story. Plus, you'll also be privy to a ton of other insights, like why it's critical to build out your entrepreneurial tribe, also a day in the life of a startup founder, and direct advice to those interested in what it takes to succeed in business. All of this and more is coming your way, so stick around. First up, let me quickly fill you in on some introductory deets about our guest, and we can do this. CEO and founder of IQMIND, Katarina Maloney is one of over 50 million people worldwide who found their lives flipped upside down from a traumatic brain injury, otherwise known as a TBI. Now, because of her TBI, Katarina used to not be able to shower, eat, or do anything by herself. She said that at that time, her TBI made her feel like her life was basically over. Now, while on her journey toward recovery, Katarina made it her life's mission to provide effective, affordable treatments for TBIs. In this way, others struggling with a TBI could have access to a worthwhile solution. And that's why she's used her extensive biotech industry background to found IQMIND, a company pioneering advanced diagnostics and treatment solutions for TBI. The company's cutting-edge cognitive assessments and neurotechnology enhance key brain functions such as memory, attention, and emotional resilience, delivering measurable improvements and reducing TBI symptoms by, get this, up to 40%. Now, IQMIND also works closely with the Lee Steinberg Foundation to advance the awareness, prevention, treatment, and diagnosis of TBI and concussions among athletes. Now, I gotta say, IQMIND doesn't only treat, diagnose, and prevent TBI from elite athletes, but also those with executive dysfunction, or even people who are simply looking to improve their mental health. Katarina firmly believes that IQMIND can help anyone optimize brain performance and reach peak cognitive potential. So with all this noted, love to welcome you to my conversation with Katarina Maloney. Yeah, so welcome to the program. How are you doing today, Katarina?
I'm very good. How are you doing, Christopher?
Excellent. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. I mean, the business, what it's all about, being on the edge of technology and cutting edge in nature, certainly. And obviously, you have this really fascinating backstory of how you came involved with it all. So I'm eager to share all of this with the listeners. And with all of this in mind, maybe we can just jump right into things here. I do have this first segment lined up. It's something called Coloring Wikipedia. As my listeners know, it's a segment I just read off a definition of something related to what the guest is all about. Now, I went with traumatic brain injury, or TBI. So let me just read that off, and perhaps after you could comment. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So here we go. Traumatic brain injury, or TBI, is defined as damage to the brain resulting from external mechanical force, such as rapid acceleration or deceleration, impact, blast waves, or penetration by a projectile. Brain function is temporarily or permanently impaired, and structural damage may or may not be detectable with current technology. TBI can result in physical, cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral symptoms, and outcomes can range from complete recovery to permanent disability or death. A bit wordy there, but all the same, I'd love to hear your take on this.
That clinical definition, the mechanical force disrupting brain function, I mean, it definitely, it's a very technical one, but it barely scratches the surface of what it really feels for the person that is going through TBI, because it's not just about psychological brain changes and physiological brain changes, but it kind of reflects on your own identity, on your own independence, on your own rhythm of life, on your beliefs, on your personality. And that makes a huge impact on a person because if something like a split of a second situation can change all of that, then, losing that sense of stability in one person, you kind of realize that how things are important in life and how nothing is for sure and there is really no stability. You are existing right now and that disconnection of yourself, from the world, the sense of itself, I mean, that can be pretty scary, but obviously it can be rebuilt, which is great.
Yeah. I really like the take right now on it because you're right. I mean, these definitions oftentimes from Wikipedia are very cold, very sterile in nature. But the way that you sort of like outlined the other impacts of what this can really mean on a person's life, in particular as relating to TBI, it kind of brings it to life for people. I would imagine as well. I'm certainly no expert in this space, but it's been within the news and media a lot, especially relating to sports and sports culture and concussions and whatnot. I would venture to say that there's probably different levels of impact that TBI has on individuals. Certainly, there could be more severe cases versus down to more milder, but all the same, this is still impacting people in their daily lives. Is that a correct assumption to be making here?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can tell you just a small example of one of our patients, a daughter. He was elderly, right? And he was saying he seems to be disconnected from the world. And when the grandchildren comes, he just goes into his shed and he plays with his tools. He doesn't want to be around the grandchildren. After a treatment with our technology, he starts playing with the grandchildren and he's looking forward them to come. And the whole family, the whole structure and ecosystem of the family changed just because of that. That kind of impact it can have.
There it is. This might be an opportune time to learn a little bit more about your company. Certainly, I mentioned it off the top when I was introducing this episode, but maybe you could share a little bit more about how TBI connects up to what IQMind is all about.
So, what is IQMIND? Oh my goodness. I'm not going to go into a corporation kind of a level. I'll just kind of give you an idea as of what the company purpose and passion and science is about. We have a technology that in 20-minute scan, we can tell you all your mental disorders. And with multiple sessions of 30-minute treatments, we can get rid of majority of the symptoms. And I'm talking about 95% improvement in depression, 70% improvement in PTSD symptoms. And I could name every single disorder from bipolar, anxiety, PTSD for veterans, all of this. And the reason for it is because brain is electrochemical organ. If you take it, brain studies started only in 60s. Today is 2025. Okay, that's 65 years ago. And majority of the studies were done for about 30 years, mainly on physical level of the brain to kind of understand the sections of the brain and so forth, so forth. And then the next research was based on the chemistry, right? To figure out the chemistry. But nobody was focusing on electricity. And brain is electrochemical organ, and brain produces more energy in 5 minutes than your whole body during marathon. So it's kind of a master computer. It seems to be very sophisticated self-healing. And how IQMind was made, basically, it wasn't born in boardroom, actually, it was born in my darkest hour, and we'll get to that. But it has a science-based approach on electricity level of the brain. And at this point, we have enough data to know what is your baseline. And what we do with the brain and how we retrain the brain is we reward the brain to make the correct brain waves in certain centers, right? Like, let's say when you have a PTSD or you can't sleep, those are completely different centers that are being affected. And maybe you have a too high brain waves and you have a certain symptoms, or you have a too low. And based on that, it affects your reality. But what we do is we reward the brain to make correct brain waves. Brain loves the reward. It could be visual. We have a VRC a C option where they can be literally, you can be watching Netflix during our treatment, or it could be through your hearing and music, and the brain reacts to it. And the reward receptors are all over the brain pretty much, and they love the reward and they start correcting the brain waves. It's just like going to the gym. It's like a brain gym, right? Once the brain waves are within the baseline of where they're supposed to be, the symptoms basically disappear. And a lot of people are asking us, how does your technology do that? We don't send anything to the brain. We don't send any energy. This is not a TMS. All we do is we communicate with the brain, and we don't know how the brain does it actually. But we can communicate with the brain and make it to perform any way we want. We can make from a veterans who is damaged with the PTSD, or we can make him a warrior again. All of that is absolutely possible. And it's wonderful that it's possible.
Yeah, it's certainly fascinating. I'm trying to get a mental image of this. I mean, like in terms of a device, people are wearing this when you're measuring their brainwave activity. How is that? What does that look like?
There is a different components. Yeah, so it's just imagining helmet or cap. The scan takes 20 minutes. It's called ERP or QEG scan. And with our technology, with the AI option today, this wasn't possible 20 years ago, 40 years ago. The technology since developed, and now we're able to see actually something that we were not able to see prior, and you don't feel it. And now we get a picture, and I can send you actually videos so you can actually see your own brain in 3D, and we can go section by section and tell you what kind of symptoms you have based on the readings. And then once we have a baseline, and we don't look at electricity only because we believe that electricity with the chemistry works together. So we work on both of them together in IQMIND. And once we look at the results, we established a health protocol. And then, possibly, it depends on your symptoms, how bad you are. Anywhere from 10, 20 sessions, you are completely back to normal, sometimes even less. We have patients who actually feel the difference after one session. I don't want to say it makes people happier, but return of the patient into the chair to get this treatment is very high. We usually treat them twice and we have them for life because they can see the difference immediately. Just like, when you go into the gym, right? You start feeling better after several sessions of gym. You can feel the muscles being stronger. You kind of feel more in control and so forth, so forth. And it really works the same way. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fascinating. Like I said earlier, being right on the edge of technology and the forefront of new technology, certainly coming down the pipeline here. And that would seem to be where you're firmly situated right now with all of this. And maybe we could step into a space where we could learn a little bit more about the intricacies of running a business like this. Obviously this program is built around, certainly the people and what they're doing, but getting this inside look at, perhaps like a day in the life of somebody such as yourself in running a company like this.
So my days kind of have equal parts of the science, of the passion, and the purpose, right? My day started with reviewing my emails, talking to scientists about some results from a data study. Then I hop on a call with the hospital chain to see how this could be implemented with our neurotech into their locations and how we could possibly work together. Then, then my brainstorm initiative with basically Lee Steinberg Foundation, because we're working together. Now, there's no 2 days the same. It's from morning till evening. Something exciting is happening, and I don't even call it a work. Tell you the truth, it's a purpose. It definitely, there's a big passion behind it, and every single task, it's very valuable because it's a part of the puzzle. Part of the puzzle that nobody ever was able to put together before. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'd imagine as well that this role that you've taken on right now has changed significantly as compared to when you first started the company too. Like it sounds like to me right now, you're that hub where you're kind of bringing together people, information, making sense of it and then repackaging out and then leading into new projects or new pathways or opportunities for the business. But probably earlier on, it looked a lot different, no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, IQMIND, like I mentioned, it wasn't born in boardroom. It was born in my darkest hour. I mean, it was made with the idea as of, okay, if I went through this just by this happening to me, and you searching for options, and once you find out there's absolutely no options, and there's millions of millions of people who are affected the same way, and we are all hopeless, no solutions. Like there is something, and I'm going to make this available and affordable and accessible to absolutely everybody.
Well, this might be an opportune time to hear a little bit more about all of that, in this pathways segment. Maybe you could share that story.
So it is connected to my own injury, right? So I went to a doctor for my rotator cuff pain, and when he was putting cortisone shot in, he didn't have me secure basically, and I fell and I hit my head. And this injury didn't happen on a battlefield or car accident or, sports field. Like it was a banana slip kind of a moment, and it can happen to any of us, right? So that wasn't a tragedy, I tell you the truth. What was very sad is that me going from brain injury and a brain doctor to brain doctor locations, everybody was telling me the same. I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. And my problem was that I was experiencing vertigo almost nonstop, but it wasn't coming out of my ears. There were no really tests to tell you in the brain, from MRI or CT scans anywhere to tell you why you have a vertigo. None of that existed. None of that exists, period, in Western medicine right now. So what happened is that after I heard plenty of, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you, and my situation was getting worse and worse, where, I couldn't feed myself when you have a nonstop vertigo. I couldn't get in a car and drive somewhere. I couldn't even take a shower by myself, really. There were days like that. So I started being a little stubborn person, obviously, and I did not take no for answer, and this determination and became my mission. And I turned to neuroscience. I'm European, so I found a solution in Europe, a Switzerland company who were scanning people, were doing brain scans to see electricity of the people and be able to help them. So I started looking more into the tools, electricity tools of the brain, and understand that actually whole body is one electricity cycle, and your brain as well, and a background and behind it, and basically that completely channeled it into something that didn't exist before. Right now, we are in the middle of acquisition of the company in Switzerland. We are working with multiple huge NFL contracts, and I'm not going to talk about any of that, but what I'm trying to say is that potential is endless. And with this kind of a view, once your life is completely shaken and you go through something like that, it definitely transforms you to be somebody else, somebody who understand that everything bad is for something, and you got to learn your lesson and build on it. And now I want to offer to the world these options, and we are hoping to build a franchise option of the clinics in the United States where people can literally just imagine walking in the clinic, and in half an hour, all your potentials, your weaknesses, your strengths of your brain. And with 30-minute sessions, we can increase your usage of your brain. We even have a study with autistic children where we can increase their IQ 23 points. We can increase productivity in companies, or we can help to get rid of possible of homelessness. That's the goal of Lee Steinberg with his foundation. We can possibly help with NFL players to help with their TBI protocols, because we already can do that. We're working on units to put in helmets on the players to track their movements and track their velocity and when they get hit, and all of that. So we can make the world definitely a better place. We can heal the world one brain at a time, we think. And that is our goal, And that's how I got into this. It was a personal story of my own injury where traditional medicine gave me a little hope, almost none. I turned into something that nobody knew exists, and I built on it.
In terms of your background prior to all of this, was it related to biotechnology in any way, or was this drawn out of this experience that you just described where you entered into this whole new world?
No, it wasn't, but it was very helpful, my prior experience, definitely. In 2010, got into the cannabinoids market. And the reason why is because my body didn't like American food. I come from Europe, so I was having a lot of reactions. They were even telling me that I have a Crohn's disease, slight Crohn's disease. I couldn't eat anything, I couldn't digest anything. And then I came across cannabinoids, and they completely healed it. It all just went away. I mean, I know now, what I need to do is to not get bad. Like I can't eat like normal person in the United States, but when I go back to Europe, I can eat like European, like nothing happened. But that experience of being in the starting industry that was not developed, that was kind of a front runner right? In 2008, 2010. Nobody knew what CBD is. It was in a gray area of compliance and legality. Nobody still knows what that is. Nobody understands the difference between hemp and cannabis in general and marijuana and so forth, so forth. But I was kind of a front runner. I was the part of a company that brought CBD vape into the United States. I was one of the first companies who made the market, even though I give all the credit to the moms, tell you the truth, mom of autistic children, I believe so. They should take the credit for starting this industry, really. It wasn't easy to be front runner in an industry like this. There were fails, there were wins too, but you acquire definitely a very thick coat as of armor, to get through your daily life. And I think that helped me with my story with IQMind, right? Because I kind of did this once already when I didn't know nothing about the industry. The industry didn't exist. Like we had a conversation yesterday with Bloomberg or last week, and they were asking us, how are you guys ahead of this market, with the HIPAA compliant GDRE and everything? And we were like, oh, we just knew this is coming because we've been doing this for some time, right? So that's the same picture kind of with me in the CBD industry. I got rolled over many times. I got shot at. I remember even there was a one trade show when we almost got arrested, and it was actually in Denver, like 2012. And we're like, we're not selling marijuana, and they did not understood that part. Obviously now everybody knows what is CBD and the cannabinoids in general. So education. So I was part of the education group that was the first frontliner that got shot at. So that changes you. That you kind of look at everything like, phew, it's fine. Next.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of leads me into a question that I have lined up for you here in the segment Q&A Discovery, where like in both markets, it sounds like what you were describing there in the cannabinoid market and like all the different possibilities and ways that it can assist people and help people. But at that point, it's still so new. So you're constantly having to educate the market on all of these things, what it is, what it isn't, what it could be useful for. And it sounds like to me where you're at right now, there is this similarity of, IQMind, and you've already listed off several different possibilities of where this technology could be, useful in several different settings. But again, it returns to this notion of really like honing in on educating the market. And that must be a bit of a challenge at times in the sense that you can see all these possibilities and you like want to just run into these new markets and just sell and get your product out there because you truly believe in the possibilities. But having to double back and be like, okay, no, we have to take the time and educate. And sometimes it just takes time. And I'd love for you to share a little bit more about, what that has been like and what that currently is for you right now. How much time are you devoting towards that?
Educating the market, educating people. We try to do as much possible. And obviously, the way how to do it the best way is to give them the opportunity to learn about it and try it. Our experience on daily meetings is from investors to possible managers or people we're hiring. They are like, oh my God, I have a sister. Oh my God, I have a mom. Oh my God, me. Can you scan me? I need help. The usage of this tech can be absolutely offered to anybody. Children with ADHD in a school to elderly people in elderly homes can use it. Every single athlete. I didn't even mention that we've been working with our technology has been used by Red Bull athletes for over a decade in their centers. All of their athletes are getting brain tune-ups all the time because they even did a study, Project Endurance, Red Bull Project Endurance. You can look it up on their website. It increases the reaction time 30%. Why would you not do that? Why would you not make your brain stronger and more resilient to anything that life throws at you, right?
That's what must be challenging is you can see where this technology would be, applicable. And it's applicable across several different planes. But as a company, having to like devote certain resources to, okay, this segment, we're gonna go in on this segment and this segment, and then maybe stage 2 or stage 3, we're gonna look at this market or this market. How has that been? Like, certainly, like you can't just blow up and go after everything all at once. There's just not enough resources and probably manpower, for that matter, to be able to do that all at once. Is it a challenge for you to sometimes pull back on the reins a little bit and be like, okay, we have to kind of have a measured approach to this?
Definitely. I mean, the best way to look at it is you got to strategize, right? You got to strategize where to go, what market to go after, what you do. Like my original actually idea for IQMind was kind of a lifestyle clinics. Imagine at the airport, you go get a brain tune-up for having fear flying or for having jet lag or things like that, like a lifestyle option. But then actually we figure out that the best option is, and the most probably cheapest for us, and it will make the biggest impact, is to go after pro sports. And that's what we're focusing right now, because making pro athletes performing better and having results on that level, we believe that the general public market will follow. Because if your best player and person that you are a big fan of is doing it, you want to do it as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. It leads into this next question where it's like the word that you use, I'm going to go back to it, is strategy, right? And then strategically going after certain markets. And you've already mentioned too some of the partnerships that you've been able to build, whether it be through Red Bull or the Lee Steinberg Foundation, through the NFL. You also have some partnerships with reputable educational institutions like Harvard and Yale. As far as building that type of ecosystem to help, again, returning to this point of educating the market, how has that been? Like, those certainly are big names that everyone's familiar with, but I'd imagine they weren't probably the easiest to cultivate, at least initially. Maybe you could speak to those points a little bit for us.
Nothing is easy, and anything that it's easy is not worth it, right? But it's all science based. So anybody who really truly cares about something that really works, and there's no filters from political or economical or any view, is willing to try. We even recently actually acquired a company that it's co-owned by National Football League Players Association. So we are working together now to make the athletes safer and provide solution for the TBIs. But the journey wasn't easy. It never is. But you got to be relentless in your needs and in your wants, especially when it has a good purpose. Purpose to help others, because then you're doing the right thing. And there were moments where I wished where I would not be putting all my money and all my time into this, trust me, because majority of my friends and family, they are enjoying the life. Instead of that, I'm working every day till 9 p.m. But I like it. I really want people to have these options, because it will change the world. And I think people earned it. People should have it. They have a right to have options. They have a right to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an interesting point that you raise as well, is like, once you get behind a mission such as that's the delineation sort of between being an entrepreneur and somebody who's just working for a company, in a sense, is that when it's yours and when you can really truly buy in and see what the impact could be of the service that you hope to get out into the market, or you want to expand further, that fuels you, right? That can really push you through a lot of barriers and allow you to be, use that word again, relentless, So I really like
Yeah.
that point there. Yeah.
And we actually even tracking the results. Tell you the truth, like we working with Matt Fleshman, a neurofeedback advocacy project.com. You can go there. It's a nonprofit. You can donate. But what they do is they tracking our technology results used in certain communities, and you can see the impact. Crime goes down. You can see the impact. There's much less visits to ER, much less visits, emergency psychiatric visits. Children are not behaving in the school. It has a huge impact on the whole community. And once you see this, just imagine that all of us would be better versions of ourselves, where the world would go. It sounds like a dream, but it's reachable. It's possible.
And one last question here within this segment, relating to, building out a team. And something you'd mentioned already is how, like, some of the people that you might bring on board, it's easy in a sense to get them because, like, they can also have a relationship with this technology where, like, it might impact somebody within their family in a positive way. So, automatically, almost by default, you're touching a nerve with people, I suppose, and allowing them to one, get on board with what you're doing to maybe help with their own family members, but then also to, like, this broader impact. In terms of, like, internal team building and whatnot, what has that been like for your company?
Well, that's definitely been a challenge as well, because as older you get, you kind of realize you need to build your own tribe, right? Somebody who has the same purpose, somebody who has the same mission, somebody who has the same vision, because otherwise it will not work completely. So it took me some time to find the perfect tribe, let's just say it that way. But I think I'm there. I'm working with Lee Steinberg, I'm working with multiple people in my life who can make a really big difference, and they can get the work done and have the right contacts and to bring this to the level where we need to be, right? Seriously, we even have a person on the staff who's talking to Tony Robbins. The potential is there. You just gotta find your tribe. And for that, I would be just like butterfly. You want to catch a bunch of butterflies? Don't try to hunt them, but build a garden and let them to come to you. And I think I definitely did that with IQMind. So it's getting easier now. But it took me some time to get there, to get that, to understand that.
Well, that's a good point, of trying to find the right people who's going to advance this mission. And certainly it isn't an easy process. It does take some
Mhm.
time as well. But I like that metaphor that you used, the butterfly at the end there. Eventually, like you reach a point, a tipping point, I suppose, where, you've put it out there enough that you're going to begin to attract the type of people that you're after, your tribe, as you say. Actually, I did lie. I do have one last question in this segment here that I want to get into. And this is more on the personal side again, returning to you. Obviously you had a fairly challenging, well, that's an understatement, journey in launching this company, based off some of your personal experiences that you shared. But to the point where you're at right now, it sounds very exciting. I am sure there's still a lot of struggle in different points of running this business. How is it for you personally running a company of this size, I suppose, and potential? There must be extremes along the way, ups and downs. How do you keep your emotions in check along this journey?
I get my own brain tune-up.
That's the perfect answer. There you go.
Seriously. I mean, there are days where, they call me a lioness, even though I'm just a kitty who wants to be petted. But definitely, be relentless. Don't accept no. Understand that any challenge, any problem is just a mask solution. There's always a way. And in a sense, life is just one big game. So you got to know what kind of tools you have to play with, right? Who you are, definitely. And all the life experiences that life throws at you are basically the situations where you're supposed to get it, in a sense, right? Where you're supposed to realize who you are and what you can accomplish. And a lot of people don't understand that. So, or they're not willing to grow up, whichever. But that's what life is about. So yeah, be relentless.
Well, I like that too. I think it's like a measured, sort of pragmatic approach to it, where you're drawing upon some of your past maybe struggles, and also like how you overcame, how you got through those difficulties, and reminding yourself in a sense of that when you're encountering new difficulties. Right? There's always like a lot of power in that. I think a lot of people speak to this point, but sometimes it's easy to forget when you're in these moments. So that's a solid reminder there for listeners. Well, I would like to shift on over into this last segment here, our crystal ball segment. And here we're looking towards the future, transportation, so on and so forth. And obviously, like what we've been talking about with you and your company, IQMind, certainly being on the edge of science and technology. And the day and age we're living in right now, AI is dominating for obvious reasons. And I would assume that your technology is definitely taking advantage of what AI is offering. And that unto itself would mean that things are shifting and changing constantly within your industry, within your company itself, and how you go about measuring, analyzing, so on and so forth. First off, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how AI is affecting a company such as yours.
So how is it affecting? A lot of possibilities. A
Hmm.
lot of possibilities. So imagine just a brain data, right? Or any data, right? Any database storing any medical file on any patients or customers was just stored, right? Now, let's say our database has AI-driven options. We're working on the 5D AI boots, kind of a cloud space where any file, and we obviously standardize the data collection per every single person. Once it's uploaded, the AI boots will find a clusters of the healing. Let's say here's 5,000 patients who have the same healing. Let's look at what they took. Look what the kind of elements they have. So we can find things that we never knew existed. And in the past, that would take 20 years to finalize to see the improvement rates, right? Because imagine how many clinicians, how many people would need to actually look at the document itself. Prior computers, they would need to have it print out and look at the data and connect the dots. After computers, they would find some connective dots. But now with the AI, let's say I'm talking just about our database, we're able to see clusters of the healings, which is enormous power, thousands and millions of hours of clinicians, of hundreds of thousands of clinicians that can pull up within the seconds. So, so discoveries in the medical field are going to be absolutely enormous. And I'm talking about a new generation of healthcare that it's personalized, completely preventative, because if you really find the cause of the root of the problem, you're obviously making preventative medicine, right? And it's going to be all powered by neurodata. And I think people going to adapt to this. And it's about life or tech, but the world is changing so fast, basically. Either you are athlete or entrepreneur or veteran or student or a child in the school, we're going to create your own brain blueprint and you can build on it and make your brain better, right? So where that goes with AI in next 5, 10 years, 20 years, where how fast we're advancing, I mean, it's endless. I mean, I don't want to talk about possibilities, but I really think that, just like you have a lot of small gadgets and devices to biohack, right? I use the Aura Ring. I love it. We're going to offer that as well. One of my things is I want to have a tracking device, mind track, that basically is going to be able to track your mood and chemical levels of your brain and definitely see patterns and prevent you from a lot of situations, that goes in the future. So we're going to be able to withstand much more. And, when you're looking at it already without even the data in the market for the last 10, 20 years, what today's generation is like, like let's say my 4-year-old niece, my sister's daughter. She's 4 years old and she grabs my phone, she logs in, she puts on YouTube and she starts scrolling through her cartoons any way she wants and doing shortcuts on YouTube that I don't even know. I don't know about you, but when I was 4 years old, I was probably eating dirt in the playground.
Exactly. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
the generation and the usage of the brain is advancing, and with the AI options and the power hacking, I call it biohacking hacks into people's lives. I think, if we have this conversation in 5 years, we're going to be both like, oh, we didn't see this coming, did we? It's going to be enormous change.
100%, 100%. What I'm gathering from all these conversations that I'm having with both entrepreneurs and professionals within several different types of companies, small, medium, and large, is like just the way in which AI is really shifting and changing the entire game of how people run their businesses, how they go about their jobs, internally. Obviously now, like you're alluding to there, like these massive data sets that AI is able to go through rather quickly and, draw inferences from and be able to figure out, perhaps like new directions for the company based off of some of these data sets, or it's changing the game of how companies are being run, and that's to me is quite fascinating. And I think that's something that's going to continue to advance and like I said, like change the game, I think, for a lot of people getting into this. And also it's becoming a skill in a sense that you have to be able to move quickly with these data sets that are coming out rather fast, and be able to shift and change and be nimble as a company, as a business, as a leader. Well, I do have one last question here for you, and this one's more on the side of words of wisdom. And I'd love for you to share any wisdom that you'd be able to give to a young person who's interested in starting a company that is on the edge of science and technology, much like maybe IQMIND. Like, what direct advice would you have to somebody who's interested in that?
So I think they should definitely remember that innovation isn't about being the smartest person in the room. You should make sure you are in the right room, because if you're the smartest in a room, you're in the wrong room. But what I wanted to say is really about not giving up, the relentless part. Listen to your story, listen to your struggles, dissect them, look at the details, and then look at that from a 30,000 point of view, 15,000 point of view, and then on the bottom, and make steps. One step at the time is closer each day to the goal. Don't have just your eyesight on the ball that it's far, far away. It's wonderful to get yourself reminded by it, but you need to keep your definitely focused on step one up to the step 100, and then move forward. Understand that strategizing and planning ahead, absolutely everything you do on very high level, medium level, and the bottom level is absolutely needed. So you keep yourself in the check. But I think the relentless part and not never giving up and believing in yourself, it's probably the biggest word of wisdom you can probably get from me.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time today, Katarina. It's been a true pleasure to learn not only about you, your history, but certainly your company, IQMind. And I know listeners are absolutely going to love this conversation. So thanks again for taking some time and joining the program.
Oh, thank you for having me, Christopher. It's been a pleasure to share this story. And anybody who's interested, in IQMind, you can visit us at iqmind.ai or multiple of our social media accounts. And anybody needs anything, just let us know. I mean, we're just getting started, but I believe that, in 5 years, the options will be definitely different to the world. They will know about us. Thank you so much, Christopher. This was a lot of fun.
Now, for those interested in learning more about Katarina and her work, you can do so via her company website, IQMind. You can also find her on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. And for reference, all this information, including the links, will be in the show notes. And hey, if you like today's show, please be sure to tell a friend and share. To show further support, you can always rate, review, and subscribe wherever you access your podcasts. And lastly, you can head on over to YouTube. I do have a channel over there which hosts some of the content from these audio recordings. Now, finally, don't forget to join us on the next episode of Life as a... You could literally be one listen away from finding your dream job. I'm Christopher Schoenwald, your host, and until next time, don't settle for less. Find the career you were born for.